Okay, then
I want to, before going into
that's
that.
what was done, that was the letter said, and all I know is that it didn't take place.
I actually want to go back to your first point, which I think is, in some ways, the most important point about the letter and about what the district manager, what the chairperson can do, because I think that is a very important point. And I want to start by saying this whole situation is very troubling, I think, because it involves two of the most dedicated people on this board, Vinny and Teresa. And I hope that the issue with Teresa, we can come to some reconciliation on, and I'll talk about your second issue on that in a second. The letter that went out on December 5th, I've talked to, I think, all sides on this. I don't think it was intended as any sort of change in policy. I think it was actually seen as reinforcing existing board policy. Now, I think I disagree with that. I know others disagree with it more strongly. Personally, I think that on communication like that, it should at least be run by a chairperson if there is a relevant chairperson. And Teresa could have raised objections at that point. If there were objections from the chairperson, it could have gone to the executive committee, they could have been polled. That letter on December 5th never went before the executive committee, just to be clear, because I think there was some misunderstanding in what was being said before. So I mean, personally, I would like to have seen that go to the chairperson. And but I will say too, the issue of, I mean, first off, within the bylaws, and I haven't read the charter, so you can advise me about that, but within the bylaws, there is a certain amount of executive privilege with the chairperson, and that's needed because Dell's right, you can't on every issue convene the executive committee or convene the full board in order to write a letter about something. On an issue like this, particularly since it's been so divisive, it should have been vetted by Teresa, and if Teresa and Vinny disagreed on what the board's response was, then it could have gone to the executive committee. It's also quite possible that that letter could have been written in a way that would have supported the larger agenda of, Yaski's letter. The majority of Yaski's letter really was in tune with what we said in our November resolution, which, by the way, was my idea, and I have a certain attachment to. So, it was not completely at odds, and I think the most important thing in all of this is that whatever that letter said, the December 5th letter said, it was in no way a repudiation of the Greenway. It was no way a sea change of the board's position. And we can disagree over whether or not it represented a major change or minor change. But I think that's a separate argument. I agree with you that there should be some better communication, and this whole thing I think really boils down to a breakdown in communication and protocol, and I think all sides are guilty of that. And
the only person being punished is Teresa. There is blame to go around everywhere, and the only person being punished is Teresa.
In a way that
However, I will say that whatever right or wrong about the December 5th letter, Teresa should not have gone to the press first. She should have gone first to the board and just said, what's up with this? We don't give up our free speech when we sign on to this board, but let's work through channels first. If that doesn't work, then by all means, call the press.
Okay, so then I have a clarification. So, Evan signed on to Yaski's letter, and Chris Olahofsky wrote his own letter to the press. So what's the difference between what Evan and Chris did and what Teresa did?
Personally, I don't think any board member should be signing as a board member. I mean, I think the better way to put those letters is you sign your name, and like sometimes it'll say at the bottom, Ward Dennis is a member of Community Board 1. But you make it clear, it should be made clear, Evan should have made clear when he signed on to that letter, that he was signing on as Evan Thies, not as Evan
Which
Thies.
I was, and I should,
But he
I
did
should not
sign
have
it
said
as
my.
chair of the environmental.
I don't think any board member should be signing on to anything like.
So it's true, I mean.
Yeah, and I don't know about Chris's letter.
The issue here
how-
is about
He
process.
signed on as community board member.
It's about process and hypocrisy is
The main
there
question
is the discussion.
In what capacity were Vinnie and Jerry signing that the December 5th letter? Was it as an official board action?
Yes, I believe it was. And if you read the bylaws, they do have, Vinnie does have the power to
Well, I
make executive decisions, quote unquote. As I said, I don't fully agree with it, but
But not modify
reverse
for
the board's
position. You
position.
could say because in a letter it said you're going to reintroduce parking on Kent Avenue, it was a fundamental recommendation of the, whatever you think of the Greenway, it was a fundamental part of the Greenway that we voted on in November, that was a major modification to the board's position. To me, I don't see, and you know what, we could argue about this, but if we could, reasonable people could argue about whether or not the board leadership has the authority to do that, then why is it that Teresa's being punished for raising that question?
Because of the way she raised it, not because she raised it, she could.
So we're now about style and not substance. That's what this community board
I
is
think,
about.
Peter, can
It is
we,
substance.
Ward, I just want to give a few comments regarding this. Just basically, from everybody here, that I'm very thankful to be on the community board with such dedicated folks. And I know everybody here is very intelligent and really listens to the issues in the community. Back last year, when the Greenway issues came up, I was under the impression that the entire board voted on eliminating, basically because the enemy here is DOT, who went ahead, and let's not lose sight of that, DOT went ahead and put no standing signs. I was under the impression that at last year's meeting, we decided to ask DOT to strictly take away those no standing signs and put up no parking signs. I never ever thought there was gonna any talk about removing bike lanes, adding additional, putting them on one side of the street. I never thought that was the board's position. And if so, then I was mistaken. But I was under the impression that, once again, keeping it on DOT, the issue was telling DOT, you guys messed up, you put up no standing, which is affecting businesses now, because you can't even just put your car there, put the blinkers on. Now it's no standing, you ticket everybody. So I thought we were gonna tell them to put up no parking, and that was it. And again, this is part of your
as
process.
when you're talking about our November resolution, which really did not ask them to do anything in particular, it asked them to fix the problem. And we identified the problem.
Okay, so then in
and
December, the decision was what? To ask them to remove a lane? Because I don't remember that being.
To just ask him to come back and help us.
Okay, and then the letter that Teresa was objecting to in the paper was to,
Councilmember Yaski's letter, which the December 5th
which
letter
asked for a
endorsed,
removal.
asked for a temporary removal of the
Okay,
lane.
and the board never ever asked for removal of any lane. And I think that's where this whole process is.
And that's where that's
Back and
where
forth is.
I agree with you. I think when I talked to Vinnie about it and when I talked to Jerry about it, it was not seen by them as a major
at the November-
contradiction. And so
Okay, well,